Hi everyone, long time no see. I am so sorry. It has been a while. I needed a break. So I'm ready though to get back into this and hopefully do that, make this a regular thing again. Okay, couple of things coming up soon. Convocation, Halloween convocation is next Friday. This is for the Raleigh location. It's going to be next Friday, October 25th at 6 p.m. Now, I can almost guarantee that that is going to fill up. And so we will open the next one. It'll probably be either five or seven. And we will actually probably have all three, five, six, and seven. And then maybe if we need to do eight as well or nine, I'm right there with you. I'm so excited. This is our biggest convocation of the year. Not only do you get to perform, and this is our first one, we had to postpone the first one a couple weeks ago. So this will be the first one we get to hear you play, but then also you get to wear costumes and there might be some candy involved. I'm excited. I'm going to dress up. I don't know what I'm going to dress up as, but I will say what I loved dressing up as a kid was a witch. So maybe I'll be a witch, maybe I'll be something else. But we have a huge costume rack, and so I will be looking for that. But please come dressed up. We want to see your costumes. Parents, you can come too. Bring your costumes. We want it. We want to see it all, and maybe we'll do like a little costume parade or something when we're there. If we have time, we might not have time, but maybe have everybody stand up and maybe we'll take some pictures or something with the costumes. We also have, believe it or not, guys, this is for both Millbrook and Millbrook. I don't know why I said Millbrook. Also, Myrtle Beach and Raleigh, that we have recitals coming up. I cannot believe it, in less than 2 months. So be thinking about and preparing and getting ready for the recital and what you're going to perform. Typically, students do two pieces, so you get to pick your two best pieces and talk to your teacher about that. I don't know the times yet for the recitals, but that will be coming out soon. I have to discuss with teachers. So stay tuned on that. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Inside Out 2, the movie. Have you seen it? It just came out, I guess, a few months ago. I think it was a few months ago. I hadn't seen it until a couple days ago. So I saw it 2 days ago. Oh my gosh. I want to talk about it and I want to talk about how it relates to the music world and just life in general. First of all, I got to say, amazing movie. I was so impressed with it. Definitely one of my favorite Disney movies, has come out in a long time. I did feel like the movie was very similar to the first one. There were some things that were like the concept of joy being cast out into the mind, like that was like the second time it's happened, right? Also having a little bit of the gimmicky stuff, like before it was Bongo, right? Bongo and his little go-kart or whatever it was, or bicycle, whatever it was. And then there's Pouchy and this one. And so hopefully this is not a spoiler alert. So if you have not seen Inside Out 2, go see it. Maybe stop this for right now, but come back to it because it's such a good movie. It's such a good movie. It's on Disney Plus right now if you want to go see it. It's also, you can, I think, get it on Amazon and iTunes and all that. So they introduced some characters this time. For those of us who have anxiety, have suffered from anxiety, performance anxiety, or just in general, they introduce anxiety. They also introduce envy and ennui, which I think is like boredom. Those because as her name Riley, as she gets older, has more of those emotions. So let's talk about anxiety. Okay, so I loved how they depicted anxiety. Not to mention they like persona or cartoonize emotions. I think that's really cool, especially for kids. So if your kids haven't seen it, please have them go watch it because it helps, and I'm sure, an understanding of emotions and how they work. So anxiety as an emotion can be very helpful. It can be a very helpful thing. It can get you moving. It can get you going when maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. So it can be productive. It's protective. It feels protective to me. It feels like it's like your own personal insurance that's in there. But as you can see from the movie, anxiety can flood you. It can stop you. It can derail you, and that's where it's not good. And maybe having general anxiety all the time, like a little bit is maybe helpful, but maybe any more than that little bit is not. Because then, other things come into play, such as fear, where they put fear and anxiety together, and like joy and sadness together. I think that was interesting. But performance anxiety, how do we relate this to as a musician? Performance anxiety, all of us, the majority of us suffer from performance anxiety. And let me just tell you my story. I have not only suffered from performance anxiety but also general anxiety as well. So I remember when I first experienced anxiety for the first time, I was going into my senior year in high school, and it was over the summer. I was at a camp, and I get a phone call. We get a phone, my brother and I get a phone call that my grandmother is dying, and of cancer. And that was a really tough phone call. I have a very small family, and so that was a lot to deal with. And I recall then not really feeling anything, like not feeling grief, not being like nothing, but I did feel this feeling of panic. And it was just like my heart was beating out of my chest, like I couldn't breathe. And so as I went on through the school year, I come back to school, I start to have anxiety attacks. Have you guys ever had those? Anxiety attacks are different from just anxiety, general anxiety, but anxiety attacks is like this acute thing where was I couldn't breathe. My heart was right. I couldn't be still. I had to be moving. I thought there was something wrong with me. Like I physically thought there was something wrong. I thought I was dying. So I went to a heart doctor. I went to a neurologist. I went to a whole bunch of places. I was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong in terms of like physically, but I was convinced that I was dying. There was something wrong with me, that this wasn't right. I also noticed that I started to have anxiety attacks where I was just like, I was out of my head. Like I could not concentrate. I thought I was just going to keel over. Um, but it was starting to happen at the same times every day. I was in AP psychology, and we were watching a video about a guy who was, I guess, working in a railroad, and this metal rod goes through his head, and I think it dissected his brain, or he was still alive. I mean, crazy. It was gross. It really creeped me out. And I started to have a panic attack in that class. And so it started to be, and so I asked, can I please, like, go walk? And the teacher was like, of course. Like she could tell that I was, and so I had like a friend walk with me. I would walk outside. And this started to happen the same time every day. Every day I would start to have this anxiety attack. It was like, oh, AP psychology, I gotta have anxiety, I gotta have my attack. And I would also notice I would have it in the car, like any place where I felt like stuck, where I couldn't like go anywhere. It just felt like I had to get out and move. Like I couldn't just be there. And I would take medication, and that helped, a bit. Didn't fully help, I have to be honest, but it did help a bit. Now, let let I was also, this is my senior year, this is when I start to be interested in being a music teacher. I wanted to be a music teacher, didn't know I wanted to, so I started taking voice lessons, and so there was performing involved. There was the senior recital. I did a half senior recital, like just learning, having lessons that last year, then getting ready for auditions because I wanted to go to music school. All this stuff. So I had all these things come up, and also auditioning for scholarships, and so it was just a lot. And I definitely, and still to this day, suffer from performance anxiety. That is just something that I have suffered with for a long time. Now, performance anxiety was different for me than regular anxiety. I was not in my body when I was in performance. I would go off the stage and be like, what did I just do? I have no idea. I would be like completely disassociated, completely like detached from myself, and just like in this like bubble where I wasn't able to focus on anything, and completely didn't know what I was singing about. And there was just no attachment to the actual like act of singing. So luckily I knew my music well enough that I could just like get through it on autopilot, but I had no idea what I did after I did it. Like I truly uh couldn't even recall specific things that I did. I mean, it was that like tunnel for me. That was a tunnel. I don't know if that affects you like that, but that's how it was. And I would say I still to this day suffer from performance anxiety. There are some major differences now, though. But so when people ask me, they're like, "Do you have performance anxiety forever? Does it change?" I can't tell you for certain that it will change for you. I can only tell you my experience, and it has changed for me. And the biggest change is that I know what to expect. Like, I know what's going to happen. I know how to keep myself in the present when I'm doing performance. And that is to me is like to really attach to what am I doing? What is my character doing in this music? What is my goal? Who am I singing to? Who am I speaking to? So those things, those acting choices and the musical choices and also having the foundation in place has really helped. But the biggest change is the amount of time that I have anxiety when I'm actually doing it. So the amount of time before I perform, I'm still nervous. I still I'm breathing heavily, like my heart rate is increased. It's hard for me to concentrate. I just feel this like rush of adrenaline. And then when I get on stage, I would say the amount of time that I am nervous, that I am feeling that panic is much less. So maybe I would say a good minute, even less. Now I kind of get over it and I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm in the present, like I can do this. Um, and so it is possible that things change that as you do it. But I just want to set you up if you're a musician who has not done this very much, that there's a real possibility that you might not ever be able to change it, and that is okay. Anxiety is can be helpful. I mean it shows that you care. That is good that you care about your work, about your art. That is a good thing. It can propel you. We just don't want it to immobilize you. We don't want it to get it so you don't ever do it. We should always be testing ourselves. Well, not always, but we should test ourselves frequently to like put ourselves out there and see what happens. And it makes the failure is not as bad. Like you kind of get used to failing as a musician. You just do. It's part of it. It's part of the, you want it to be part of it because you don't want to go your whole time without ever experiencing that. Because when you do, it's like it, it's derails you, it stops you, it like that. So these people who never have had anything happen, or they never get anxious, they never care, they're not really learning, they're not really, yeah, I don't know, they're just they're not really getting that full experience as a musician. And part of being a musician is failure. It just is. So we should be out there. So don't let anxiety stop you from doing this. This is, if you have anxiety, it's protective. And there are ways that you can manage it. I mean, you can manage it with medication. I've definitely tried that. I mean, I won't go into the specific medications that I've used, but it has helped. Was it a foolproof thing? And are there other side effects that I had to deal with? Yes. But I have done that before, and sometimes you just need to take the edge off. A banana, eating a banana. I know a lot of string players, a lot of people who are instrumentalists, that the potassium helps calm you down. I've even been known, I don't know if I should even say this, but Benadryl, it makes you tired. Uh, uh, I'm not a doctor here. I just want to let you know, I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you to take pharmaceuticals, but I'm just saying that there are ways that you can manage this. Meditation, there, you know, taking a bath before. I mean, another thing I used to tell all of my singing students is do not talk to other people before you perform. And it is because we're in a time to focus. It's a time to go inward, a time to keep the energy level maybe a little bit lower, a little bit more manageable. And so, because sometimes when we have anxiety, we think time moves faster than it does. And so, if we kind of get in a lower energy, then we can walk slower on the stage and take our time and be that diva that we. So that's another, there are other ways too. There are, somatic stuff. There, I mean, going to therapy. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of different things that you can do. But I do just like to let people know that it's unrealistic to think that your anxiety can completely go away by performing over and over. It's just it could, it very well could, but we just don't know. We don't know, and you don't know until you try. So again, and I guess another tactic would be to keep doing it, just to keep trying. Anyway, back to the movie. So they have introduced all these characters and how they all interplay, in our minds, and how anxiety can flood itself, and and how joy saved the day and comes in, and um it's a really good movie, and especially for kids to see how our emotions work. And yeah, I would give it maybe a 9 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10, something like that, 8.75 out of 10. That might be let's say 8.75 out of 10. It was very inventive, and yeah, I think it's important that we understand our emotions. We have agency over our emotions. That is hard for me to know sometimes and to remember, but we do. Feelings can come and go, and we can just observe them, or we can let them take over. And then if we do, we kind of lose our sense of self, right? So that's another thing, is that we see how the sense of self is formed in this movie, and that the different threads come together to make us who we are. And so not letting one emotion or anything take over, because that's not really us. Those are just things that come and go. So it's beautiful, because as musicians, that's what we experience, and we kind of get that heightened experience of a lot of those emotions when we perform. It's like we're kind of getting a nice little present of all of that, and how we get to over other mediums kind of get to work through some of that stuff within the performing, which is, I think, pretty cool. So I look forward to seeing you and hearing you play next week, and seeing how your performance anxiety takes part. It's part of you. Um, and how you navigate it, because you have agency over your emotions. All right. I hope to see you next week. I can't 100% guarantee, but I hope to see you next week. If I don't see you, happy Halloween. It's such a great time of year, and I love that it's gotten cooler outside. Ugh, yes. All right. I will see you soon. Bye. Mwah.